Привет, Asgardia.
Hello,
Здравствуйте,
Asgardian.
асгардианцы.
Hello, Asgardians.
Я Игорь Ашурбейли.
I am Dr. Igor
Мне 56
Ashurbeyli.
лет,
I'm
и за свою
56
жизнь
years
я
old,
дал
and during my
сотни
life I have
интервью,
given hundreds of
провел
interviews.
десятки
I have
пресс-конференций.
held
Но вот
hundreds of
формат
press conferences,
лайвстрим —
but the format
это
of a
для меня
live
необычный
stream
формат,
is
и,
an
честно,
unusual
это очень
format for
первый
me. And to be
опыт.
honest,
Я
this is my
привык
first experience of
разговаривать
doing
в глаза
such
людей,
things,
с
because I'm
которыми
used
я
to
говорю. Я
talking
всегда
and
вижу
looking in
только
the
один
eyes of
глаз —
the
это
people who
глаз
I am communicating with,
камеры.
but now I see only one eye, and that is the eye of the
Давайте
camera.
попробуем.
And,
Всё бывает
well,
когда-нибудь первый раз.
let us try. I mean, everything happens for the
У
first
нас
time, sooner or later.
час
We
эфирного
have
времени.
1 hour of time,
Первую половину
and
я
the first
буду
half of it I'm
отвечать
going
на
to
вопросы,
use
которые поступили
answering
ко мне
the
ранее,
questions
а
that
во
I have
второй
received
половине
beforehand, and the
буду
second
отвечать на
half of
вопросы,
this time
которые
I'm going to
будут
use to
поступать
answer the questions that are
в
going
режиме
to
онлайн,
be coming in
которые буду видеть,
live and that
надеюсь,
I'm going to hopefully be
на
seeing on
экране
the screen
своего монитора.
of my monitor.
Итак, начнем.
And let us start.
Поступило, наверное,
I
более
think
200
that we have received over 200 questions,
на большинство из них я
and of course, to the majority of them, I will not physically have the time to answer. And prior to us streaming, I have received the most frequently
на мой взгляд,
asked questions and the ones that I thought would be the most interesting. We only accepted the questions from residents of Asgardia, and using the situation, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank our residents that you are the foundation of our Asgardian society. And thank you very much for this.
Итак,
So,
вот вопрос поступил.
now
Я,
a
к сожалению, не
question.
всегда буду
Unfortunately,
знать
I
имя
will not
и
always
страну,
know the name
но
and the
постараюсь
country
по
of the
максимуму
person
обозначать.
asking,
Вопрос
but I will
от
try to make
Николаса
it as clear as
Хоффмана.
possible. A
из
question
США.
from Nicholas Hoffman from
Есть
the
ли
United
планы,
States of
чтобы
America.
Solar стал публичной
Are
цифровой
there any
валютой,
plans for Solar to become a
возможно, похожей
public
на биткоин?
currency, maybe something
Но
like
Solar
the
никогда не
Bitcoin?
будет
Well,
похож на
Solar
биткоин
is not
по
ever
той
going to
простой
be
причине, что
like the
биткоин —
Bitcoin,
это
for the reason that
спекулятивная
Bitcoin is a
валюта,
speculative currency,
которая определяется
the
тем, что
value of
есть
which is determined by the fact that
эмиссии
there is a
количества
certain
биткоинов.
limitation in the emission
Solar
of
же
the
является
Bitcoins.
нормальной
And
государственной
Solar
цифровой
is a
валютой, и
normal
ее
digital
эмиссия,
government
этой
currency, and
валюты,
its
будет
emission of this
зависеть
currency will
от
depend
объема
on the
рынка
volume of
цифровых
the
товаров и
market of
услуг,
the digital
рынка, который,
services
собственно,
and
будет
goods
формировать
of the market that is going to be formed
рынок Asgardia.
by the market of Asgardia.
Solar уже введен
Solar
в опытное
is
обращение,
already
и
being
даже
tested,
зарплаты за
and
19
we
год
already have seen the
государственным
salaries paid to our
Asgardia
government
уже
employees
выплачены
of Asgardia being paid
Solar.
out in Solar.
Не предполагается, что Solar
We
будет
do not expect
печататься
Solar to
на
be
бумаге или в виде монет.
having
Это
physical currencies such as
цифровое
paper
государство,
and
и
coins, because
Solar
we are a
планирует
digital government, and
чисто
we intend
цифровая
Solar
валюта.
to be a purely
Вместе с
digital
тем,
currency.
граждане
Given
Асгардии
this, the citizen of Asgardia, the
12
Asgardians, have
цифровых
chosen
миров, которые
12
хотели бы
currencies of the world
конвертировать
which they
Solar.
would like Solar to be
Эти
converted
12
to.
определены,
And these
и мы
12
надеемся,
currencies have
что
already
наши
been determined, and
наши
we
программисты,
hope
наши
that
технические
our
поддержки
programmers and our
обеспечат
technical support
эту
team
конвертацию
will be able to
в конце
provide
лета этого
this
года.
exchange
В настоящее
possibility by the
время
end of the
курс
summer of this
Solar —
year.
это 1
Right
Solar
now,
равен
the currency exchange rate is
евро.
1 Solar is equal
В
to 1
перспективе,
euro.
видя, какие
And
торговые войны
potentially,
идут сейчас между
seeing
этими
as what
странами
kind
и
of
в
trade
зеленом
wars
доверии,
are happening between
мы
different
надеемся,
countries and
что
different
Solar
currencies,
станет
we hope that Solar
разовой
will be able to become a
объединяющей
unifying
рынки земли
currency,
валютой.
a currency that can unify the markets of the earth
Вопрос
and the different
Али
currencies.
Алхасави из Саудовской Аравии,
Question from Saudi
с вопросом
Arabia
Ченцу из
from
Китая.
Saudi is the same as from
Такой
Chengsu from
простой,
China. Is the same
прямой вопрос.
question. It's a
Когда
very
же мы
simple
получим
question. When are we
карточку
going to get the card,
ID
the
и
ID
карточку
card,
гражданина? В
or
этом году
the
или в
citizenship
следующем
card?
году?
Are we going to get it this year or next year?
Ну, на самом деле, у нас
And
на сегодняшний день
to be honest,
есть две
right now,
категории
today, we have
асгардианцев.
two
Это
categories of
категория
Asgardians.
просто
It is the
асгардианец,
category
который
of
не
just
получает
simple
никакую карту
Asgardian
и не
who does
платит
not receive
никаких
any card and does not
взносов.
pay
И
any
есть
sort of
категория
input, and there is also the category resident, and the resident pays €100 per year. And the next stage, we hope, is going to be the concept of citizen, when we're going to be able to give out Asgardian passports, but this will only be possible when at least one earthly country is going to recognize Asgardia as an independent country. So the near future ones are only the Asgardia residents. Well, as far as the giving out the cards go, we can give them out right now, but we do not want the ID card of the Asgardian resident to be a souvenir of sorts. We would want it to be integrated with certain financial and banking capabilities, and in order for this to happen, our parliament has to accept the legislation on the national currency, and we're going to discuss this question on the next meeting of the parliament, which is going to be happening at the end of May of this year, and then we're going to have the law on the national bank. This is going to take place in the next session, and after these two have been discussed, we will be able to start delivering the ID cards of Asgardia, but you will have to give us the necessary addresses for us to be able to send the ID cards to the respective addresses. Now, Kongkyu Chan from China is asking, how do we expect to launch 1 million residents into space? Well, never. Over the past 3 years of the existence of Asgardia, none of our politicians has ever said that we are intent to launch 1 million people into space. This is some other people on our planet are planning to go to Mars and so on, but the aim of Asgardia and our main mission is the capability of giving birth to the first human child in space, and we have questions with regards to this, and we are going to talk about this a bit later. A resident from Turkey, but, well, if I would have seen that this is not a name, but this is a nick, it's just a nick, I would like to use your names, because we live in a government and not in an anonymous network, so do please use your names. So from Turkey, we have a question. Are we going to have our own special language? Well, you know that we have held a referendum among Asgardians regarding choosing the national languages of Asgardia and government languages, and we have chosen 12 government languages, a part of which you can hear in simultaneous interpretation in right now. And in terms of the language of Asgardia, like Asgardian language, yes, we have it in plans, it's planned. It is an objective consequence of out of the nature of our above Earth character, of our above national and above border nature of what we're trying to do. So this is a task that we will have to try and solve in the near future. There is no need to think that this is unsolvable. History knows examples when we've seen new languages being created, and in approximately 1 or 2 generations, it's only 50 or 60 years, it becomes normal, standard, and language starts to develop. So I hope that within this time frame, the Asgardians are going to develop their own language, and they will be able to start conversing in it, and they will be able to start receiving education in this language, and so on and so forth. Now, Callista Shoemaker from the US is asking regarding the fact that we've seen a person leave their post in the government of Asgardia. Don't worry, Anna is okay. She has sent me an SMS today wishing a successful stream. Yes, this is good that we are able to have crises, because it means we've grown to the point where our government is able to go into crisis. Anna has not left anywhere. She is my main counselor right now, and moreover, the larger part of the ministers of our government is shortly going to be moved, and I'm going to issue the appropriate order. They're going to be moved into my administration that is going to be preparing the elections of the new government, and probably this is going to be made in a decision in the summer parliament, and we're probably going to hold these elections in the 3rd quarter of this year, and it's probably going to be complete by November of this year. And using the occasion, I want to address all the residents. All of you have the right to take part in the competition of carrying out the responsibilities of ministers in this government. This is not going to be a competition of surveys like it was being done the first time, and it was not the best way to do it. There's going to be a competition of programs. So we are going to be choosing the ministers that are going to present the most economically substantiated programs in order to raise to the appropriate level the economy of Asgardia. A question from Riada Gallardo from Mexico. The mayor is a founding part of Asgardia, and they need a head, they need a chief, a leader. Now, who do you see fulfilling this role? And I think that there is a miscommunication that's going on here. I mean the hierarchy of Asgardia, the community of Asgardians. Well, our task here is for the elections of the leaders, and on the lower parts, these are the mayors of the various cities, because Asgardia does not see the earthly cities and earthly borders, but it does see the cities represented, because these are the stars of Asgardia, and we would like for every city on Earth that has more than 5,000 residents, and if it has fewer than 5,000 residents, then these smaller settlements can unite into agglomerations. We would like in each one of the cities to hold elections of mayor, and maybe some of the earthly rulers will not like how this is called, because mayor is an existing position. Maybe we can call them a representative, city representative of Asgardia, and we need approximately 50,000 mayors across Earth, and for these mayors to later be able to elect the regional representatives, the so-called prefects, and then the country representatives, the governors, the ambassadors, and then later to have direct elections into the parliament. So effectively we need an entire pyramid of self-governance to be built up from the very bottom layer and all the way up, and we already have seen the first election phase go. We had 50 mayors elected. This is a very limited number, so I would like to address all the residents and all the Asgardians. Asgardians become residents, take part in the elections to be mayors in the cities that you reside in on Earth. For this to take place, you need the city to have no fewer than 10 Asgardians, not necessarily residents, just Asgardians, the ones who could take part in a digital election and thereby elect their mayor. And I hope that we will be able to grow this movement and reach all the way up onto parliamentary elections. And the parliament is currently active. I mean, the additional elections. We have a number of representatives from all over the world, and this is definitely a unique collection of people, because even in the UN, they do not have, because there is no technology for holding digital parliamentary sessions, and we have already held 7 meetings of parliament. Only 2 of them happened in person, and we hold them once per year. Last year we have held them in Estonia. The first one that took place in Austria, and we have not yet decided where we're going to hold the in-person one this year. And the 5 other meetings took place online, and this is a unique technology. And prior to the elections, approximately 40 members of the parliament in the 3rd quarter and are going to be elected. And I also would like to suggest for all Asgardians to not be shy, because parliament is, although being a heavy responsibility, nonetheless we expect fresh blood that would be able to further improve the work efficiency of our parliament. So, we also have questions which are very interesting, and for some reason a lot of people are bothered with this. I don't know who asked this, but the question was, how are you going to solve the issue of corruption in Asgardia? Well, I'm going to be very happy if we're going to see corruption in Asgardia, because this would mean that the government has already taken shape and form, because what earthly government can there be without corruption? And I'm joking here, of course, but if we are to be serious on the matter, well, Asgardia is a digital government, a digital country, in order to minimize all the risks of corruption, because all the transactions are going to take place in a transparent digital protocol. And I'm going to address the parliament with this initiative, but we are not going to use like the normal countries on earth. We're not going to prohibit the government workers. And we, by the way, have now the legislation regarding government workers. We're going to allow the government workers to both be part of the government and to be doing commercial activities, doing business and everything else, as long as they pay all the necessary taxes. So I think that the lowest and the least important of problems that we're going to be bothered by is the problem of corruption. And I have promised to touch on the question of birthing the first human baby in space. And why do we need to give birth to the first human in space? Now, who needs this? Now, I think that this is the most important thing that the humanity needs. It needs to feel that it is immortal. Because of course we can take a trip to the moon, we can take a trip to Mars, even though Mars for now is a one-way road. But if the humanity does not learn how to replicate itself in space, we are going to forever be anchored to Earth, and we're just going to take off into the waters of space on small boats, be stuck and tied down to the low orbit of the Earth, and each time forced to come back home. And if this would be the scenario, the humanity would not be able to achieve what it achieves now. When a ship leaves the harbor and goes out for outer space, and they do not know if they're going to come back or not. And we've had these scenarios in our lifetime, and humanity did that. We had ships sail the oceans, not knowing if they'll come back. And like Tsiolkovsky wrote, there will come a time where they will be forced to leave their home harbor of the planet of Earth. And so for now, the replication of humans in space is not possible. We're unable to give birth yet. But first of all, of course, we need to be able to do that in Earth orbit, then in Moon orbit, and then we'll be able to look at doing this in further out in space. We need to be able to ensure that humanity will be able to replicate itself. We need to solve the problems of artificial gravity in space, and we need to solve the problem of protection from space radiation. And of course, this was a grand event when the first human was launched into space, but I think the birth of the first human in space is going to be more grand than the first astronaut going into space. And this is the hope of humanity for immortality in case of any cataclysms that could hit the Earth, be them natural, technological, man-made, or coming in from outer space. So this is what our mission as Asgardia is dedicated to. Now, Yaroslav from Russia is asking a question: how can we get recognized as a government, as a country, from the currently existing countries? What action needs to be taken? Well, there is a number of similar questions here now. That we have created something that is not yet a proper state. And I can't agree with these statements, because as of today, Asgardia has all the necessary characteristics in accordance to the demands and the requirements of the UN that needs to be present in a nation, in a state. And our ministers have discussed the question of territory for over half a year, and at the end of those discussions it turned out that the government, that there's a rule that each state must have some territory, and but there are no requirements into how big the territory should be or where should it be located. So when we launched our first Asgardian satellite, we have claimed that our territory is located on the height of 545 kilometers above Earth, and it contains all the data of all our residents and all the Asgardians. So as of today, we comply with all the requirements and characteristics that the UN poses onto us. But of course, for the UN, it's a shock because this is for the first time. So of course, we have a very difficult path in front of us. In order for us to file an official application to UN, we have to have recognition from at least a number of existing UN members to sign bilateral agreements with Asgardia regarding their recognition of it as an independent state. We're working on it right now, and I can't, for obvious reasons, tell you what governments and what states are we currently in negotiation with, because currently these negotiations are not yet a formal negotiation yet, because we're not using the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because we don't want to get any negative responses, because prior to actually addressing any request to sign a bilateral agreement, we of course would like to understand that we would get a positive response out of that in order not to create any negative informational currents. And our task is to conduct the preparatory work with the countries that are not a part of the G20. So we are going to be working with countries that have populations that are similar to Asgardia, where we have 1 million and something Asgardians. So we are 153rd or 154th in the world. So within the same segment as we are, that is a segment that we are going to be working in. We're going to continuously elevate and move forward towards the signing of the bilateral agreements with one country or with more countries, and only after we're able to establish that, then we're going to file application to the UN. And I think that this work is going to extend into 2021. In this year we expect to sign bilateral agreements, the preliminary ones, and then next year we expect to move this work into the UN. Anatoly is asking, do we have a venture fund of Asgardia that would invest into startups? Well, I would not call it a venture capital fund yet. We have registered a private government holding, which is called Asgardia Financial Ark, the financial ark, like Noah's Ark, of Asgardia, and this is a holding where we intend the government to hold the majority of shares, and we intend 49% to be distributed among the major investors. This this fund is already registered. It's registered according to the Austrian legislation. Currently it's located in Vienna, in the same place as where the Asgardian headquarters are currently located. And during the coming months, we're going to announce the emission of shares, and we're going to be using that in order to purchase the first fiat bank of Asgardia. And we'll be able to dedicate some to startups that are currently working with space technology. So the residents of Asgardia will be able to purchase the shares at the stage of their emission, the shares of this venture holding. And yes, it is venture, but all the business projects and all the for-profit programs that we're going to be doing are going to be held through the Asgardia Financial Ark system, because this is a government financial system of Asgardia. Now, Stefan Nikolaevich from the UK is asking, are we going to see more local events for Asgardians? And we have already discussed the topics of mayors of cities and of ambassadors of Asgardia into countries. And we are going to see, we have seen that the parliament in November of last year has chosen the 20 countries that have priority in opening of the representative offices of Asgardia. And the question of local events and the question of local happenings is basically the question of mayors and what can they do locally. because on the federal level, on the level of our state, once a year we are holding an industry conference. The first conference took place in Derb State. It was a conference regarding science and investment, and the next one was meant to take place in Montreal in June of this year, regarding the questions of citizens and rights. But unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, and there are many questions regarding coronavirus, I'm going to address them later. Unfortunately, because of the situation with the coronavirus, we were forced to reschedule this conference. It looks like it's going to take place in September. Hopefully, the situation is going to improve by then. And we are going to hold one more event during this year. It's one more in-person meeting of the parliament. At the same time as this, we have the meeting of the government, and twice a year we have the High Space Council gather, and also Asgardia takes part in many international conferences and exhibitions and various events that are to do with space. And now, coming back to Stefan's question regarding local events, we urge the Asgardians to hold local events, and moreover, we're going to announce now a competition. We have a great experience with holding competitions. We have chosen our flag, our hymn, we have chosen our symbols, everything over competition, and it was a great experience. And we want to see more ground initiatives, because we can't just come up with everything that hundreds of thousands of Asgardians can come up with. All across the world, our Asgardians, they live in over 200 countries all over the world, and the residents live in over 100 countries all over the world. Can Aldegül from Turkey says that I am a citizen of Asgardia. My son is 2 now. Is he also going to become Asgardian now? Regarding the citizenship in Asgardia, the children who are not yet fully of age yet, they can become Asgardians and residents and citizens if they have written permission from their parents, and if the parents are not there, then they're legal guardians. So if you do have legal agreement, and if you give that written consent, then yes, your little son is going to become an Asgardian. Alexander West Arctica asks, how is Asgardia related to other micronations? I already said this before. Asgardia is not a micronation nor a digital government. We consider ourselves a fully fledged state, a fully fledged government. We say that the only thing that differs Asgardia from a normal country is that we don't have a jail, we don't have slavery, and we don't have death penalty. Because in every other country, well, it's present, well, and if you try to find differences between Asgardia and other earthly nations, you will not find the differences. Why should Asgardia not be counted? And of course, we are not exactly usual for the earthly format, and it will take some time in order for this acceptance and for this recognition to come. Now, Cheryl Gallagher from the US asks, can you please describe your own ideal vision of the direction of Asgardia for the coming 3 years in terms of priorities, both for the wider public and for those who are currently working in Asgardia? Well, first of all, the first priority is Asgardia becoming a nation, becoming a hierarchical society, and its recognition. Of course, this is our priority. Our next priority is space, is the development of the technologies that are going to lead us to the accomplishment of our main goal, to the birth of the first human child in space. And the next priority is the launch of the current economy of Asgardia, because, of course, we can't boast great economic achievements right now, and it's clear, well, we're only 3 years and a little bit old, and we've only started off with nothing but an idea. So the 3 priorities for the nearest future is: 1, recognition of Asgardia and of Asgardia as a government and government building. The next one is space research, and the third one is raising the economy of Asgardia. There are so many questions regarding education over here, and this is great, because, you know, in Asgardia, over 60% of residents are young people, young men and young women, and I think that they are most interested by they're most interested in education. When we'll be able to get Asgardian diplomas, starting with school and going further into universities? And people are asking, well, do you understand? Asgardia is not a university. Asgardia is a state, and it's our job to create the infrastructure in order to allow the citizens of Asgardia to implement their ideas. So we are open to the creation of, if you want, you can open 100 schools, 100 universities, and we're ready to support this. But the initiative should come to us from the ground. The initiative should come from the mayors, from the governors, from the prefects, from the members of parliament. So please send your projects, and we are going to start discussing them and start trying to finance them with the help of the Asgardia Financial Arc. At least a part of them, we're going to make them go through competitions. But to expect for this initiative to come out of the government or out of the parliament, well, I think it's hard to expect for it to come from there, because there are so many other tasks in the priority directions of development right now that we do not think that we'll be able to launch something extra by ourselves, but we will be happy to support these projects if these projects are going to be put forth by the community and by the people on the ground. Arturas from Ireland is asking regarding the Asgardia project on satellite internet. Is everything going according to plan? Well, once again, this is representative of a number of questions that we have regarding what exact scientific direction is Asgardia currently engaged in. And we have 3 of these projects. Number 1 is the project of the creation. Well, I'll be very cautious how I say it, because this information is confidential, but we are creating our own space module of Asgardia right now. So maybe we'll be able to skip the part of launching the next satellite, maybe go directly into creating a space module for the near-Earth orbit straight away. So this is the first direction of our scientific research that we are conducting, and I'm involved in this directly myself now. The second, regarding the question of Arturas from Ireland, is the question of satellite internet. Now, the ideology of Asgardia consists in the fact that we want to provide every Asgardian as much independency as possible from all the earthly devices. And what do we mean by that? Well, we mean that currently all the space communications are tied down to the stations that are down on Earth, and the government on Earth here in the various countries, they can allow or not allow to use their territory for transmitting signal, receiving signal, and so on. And so ideally, we would want for an Asgardian to be connected with the Earth only with their feet, because feet is what they use to move around, but we would like them to be able to connect to the satellite directly using a device that would be able to connect with a different satellite, and we'd be able to directly connect that device to satellite to another device without the need to use the earthly stations. This is a very complicated technical task which we as of now do not yet have a solution for, but we are working towards obtaining such a solution, we're using the capacity of employing optical channels of communication, which would allow us to avoid the earthly communication devices. And the third direction which we're involved with is the digital government platform of Asgardia. That would allow us to form the continuously growing market of digital services and goods, the market of digital goods, digital deals, the market of government services, because we intend to, in the nearest future, provide, we intend to provide our citizens all the traditional spectrum of services that is provided by governments to their citizens. And the lawyers used to laugh, but things like marriage, divorces, certificates of birth, and so on and so forth, all the normal services that are able to be rendered digitally. So we are busy creating such a digital platform that would be the basis for the economy of Asgardia, and this is the third priority that we currently have in terms of science and technical research. Well, we have a group of Asgardians from China who is talking about the fact that because of the Great Firewall, they're unable to get access to YouTube or to Google, and they're unable to watch our stream, and they're asking whether IT group of Asgardia could provide such an opportunity using a telecommunication bridge, and they're asking to not forget about them. Well, we're not forgetting about you. First of all, because the Chinese diaspora of Asgardians is the larger ones, is top 5. I think it's top 5 in Asgardians and top 8 in the residents of Asgardia. And well, we can't exactly solve the firewall problem, but we maybe can do something about the alternative bridge of communication, and I will put this task forward in front of our IT department, and we'll see what can be done in order to aid that. And very direct question, a very direct question here. What am I going to get out of my 100 euros that I invest? Now somebody is asking this. This is an unknown seeker, but we have many questions like this. So, prior to the acceptance of the legislation on the national currency, all the people who paid 100 euro, if you did that before the legislation was being accepted, you can file an application and we'll get your money back. Now, second, for the person who has paid the 100 euro for the first time to your electronic accounts in Asgardia, you see 100 solars being transferred. So 1 euro is equal to 1 solar. So you are able to use this money within the economy of solar. So for example, you can pay the Asgardian annual taxes of 100 solar. Now your taxes are used to be used in the budget of Asgardia. The budget of Asgardia for 2020 has been confirmed and approved on the last parliament session, which was held just a couple of weeks ago. And these monies being put forward to pay salaries for the government workers of Asgardia, to pay the administration and other entities, and to finance the various programs that we're implementing. Now, I have a question to you as well. What do you get for paying taxes in the countries here on Earth? The same thing as you get from the earthly countries, you get the same things from Asgardia. First of all is the right to elect and be elected on all the levels of hierarchy. You will have the right to open your business in Asgardia, to open your companies and businesses. Now, regarding this, we're going to see the legislation on businesses and companies being discussed on the May session of Parliament in Asgardia, and we're probably going to see it accepted in its second reading at the end of summer. And therefore, we're going to see the taxation bracket approved, and I think that I'm going to come out into the Parliament with this to try and keep it it as slow as possible in order to increase the interest of Asgardians to register their companies, their digital companies, to register it in legislation and jurisdiction of Asgardia, and to be able to receive the appropriate revenue in solars with its further conversion into the currency of your choosing. And then if you are going to be needing, this is in order for you to be able to spend it if you need it on Earth. Now, a question about common language, I've answered this one already. Now, can I become an astronaut in Asgardia? What is needed and how can that be done? Now, I've already said that we're not intending to send a million Asgardians anywhere. But if we are to leave jokes aside, we are planning that in 2026, we are going to launch the first Asgardia space module. And according to the calculations of our scientists today, that module is going to carry 2 people. Now, this is as much as I can say because it would just be unfair and it would just be me misleading you. And I hope that in 2026 we're going to see the first Asgardian astronauts that, of course, are going to go through all the necessary checks and the requirements with accordance to the standards that are present as of today in the leading space nations. Anton Sneeman from Canada writes that he is a resident and he is asking, can he get official branding or mandates for projects that would improve the recognition rate of Asgardia. And right now I'm already reviewing a set of documents regarding the franchisees of Asgardia on an entire array of various activities and also the projects of license agreements that would go with this. Shortly, the administration is going to present them to the new government that is going to be formed by the 1st of November of this year. And after that, the representatives of Asgardia, local representatives, and once again, these are cities, these are districts, these are countries, and these are continents. And so the legal representatives of Asgardia and you as well as a resident of Asgardia and a citizen of Canada, you can become this representative locally where you currently live. And in Canada, this actually took off earlier than in the US. This has happened before it happened in the US or in Russia. We have seen the first representative office of Asgardia being opened, and I've told you about this before. I said that our headquarters is in Vienna, in the form of a non-governmental organization, which is called the Asgardia Terra Arc, or the Earthly Arc of Asgardia. And so the first representation of, but the first representative office of Asgardia was opened in Canada, and so in this meaning of the word, you even have a priority above other countries on receiving this status. So please do go and run for the elections, become a mayor, become part of the parliament, get the franchise, get the license agreements, and use the brand of Asgardia in your projects. And of course, this is true not only for you in particular, but for all the residents of Asgardia. Only residents have the right for this. Now, Cristiano Mordoca from Argentina is asking, how can we help those who are unable to pay the citizenship quotas? Well, this is not a citizenship quota. This is a annual fee. I think it's like €8 a month. It's €100 a year. And unfortunately, the current legislation regarding citizenship that is that is being accepted in Asgardia right now, the legislation does not allow you, just like it doesn't allow you in any other country, you're not allowed to pay for somebody. Every resident of Asgardia, because we don't have citizenship yet as citizens, we have residents, each resident is responsible and has to do it by themselves. Each resident has to purchase the solars and then use the solars in order to pay this fee. There is no possibility to pay for somebody, but at the same time, we are not checking this. So, for example, if some person person from Argentina is going to pay online for somebody, and he's going to pay this annual fee of €100, and let's say that this €100 was given to him by his parents, we're going to see him as a resident, but we're not going to investigate the financial aid that he has received from any second or third parties. We're also being asked regarding the possibility of paying the citizenship fees in smaller batches in annual. Unfortunately, this currently is not possible according to the current legislation, but we can ask the parliament to reconsider, and we can ask the parliament to see if we're able to implement this. But there are certain technical issues with this, because you know that banks are taking commission out of every transaction that we are engaging, and there are difficulties with a number of countries that we're working with, such as China and Iran, when we're working with monetary transfers. And to be honest, this is very, very uncomfortable for our Ministry of Finance. So for now, this per monthly payments or per quarterly payments is not yet available, but I think that the administration and the parliament are going to find a way to solve this issue. Well, Comrade Bendel. Bendel is our vice speaker, and he's asking me a question in live chat. Mr. Bendel, you have an opportunity to talk to me live without taking up the time of other residents and Asgardians, so I'm going to answer your question personally when we see each other. Now, Jose from France is asking what professions are currently in demand in Asgardia. And some people think that Asgardia is a collection of IT professionals or of people who are experts in space exploration, but no, this is not the case. There are a variety of different people of various occupations, of creative fields like artists, designers, and of course we do have great IT experts, but even the people who are very far away from space and do not have knowledge regarding this, but who are interested in this. For example, we currently publish the best magazine for space, on space topics, which is called Asgardia Space Journal, where we publish authors and we publish various artworks. So these are people who are far away from technologies, but who just like to romanticize space. So any job that can be done well is in demand in Asgardia, and the amount of these various occupations and professions is going to continue growing day by day. And people are asking about the implementation of zero-energy technologies, and I understand that this is something to do with Nikola Tesla. I don't know anything about this, and I'm not going to lie to you. Now, Irana Tabir is asking from Germany. He's a resident of Asgardia, and he's asking, can we launch an international space university in order to prepare Asgardians for the future that we're building? Well, we not only can, I think we have to launch this sort of university, but I've already answered the questions on education earlier, and I'm going to repeat myself. Nara, please send your project, send your initiative, send your idea. Let's look at how we can do this. We are going to be creating an Asgardian Academy of Science, within which we are going to see universities and remote education and the application of all the modern technologies in this field. The question of when is this going to happen? Is this going to happen in a quarter or in a half a year? I can't yet tell you for sure, but as of right now, we do not yet have any full projects that would have been presented to us. And so if you can present the project of an international science university and to present it to our Minister of Science, to Mr. Flores, who is soon going to be part of the administration and who is engaged in the issue of creating the Academy of Sciences of Asgardia, it would be very well placed. Now, Alexander from Russia is asking regarding the terms of how long the satellite is going to, how long does the satellite going to stay up in space, the one that we've sent? Yes, the time of the satellite is limited. I think it's going to be up in 2021. Well, at least that's the guarantee period. Maybe it's going to work after that, but 2021 is the expected date. But as I have said already, that we expect to skip the satellite stage and we expect to move on to the space module stage. And we're going to be fully clear on that by the end of the year, and I hope that I'll be able to please and make all the Asgardians happy already this year by announcing that this program has already started. But if we are unable to commit this jumping over an extra stair act, then we will be launching 2 more satellites in 2021 after the guarantee period of this current satellite is up. Mr. Anshuman Takuria from India, an Asgardian, as he writes from 2017, asks the following: what is your vision for Mars? Is Asgardia ever going to be there? Well, Mars is more the area of expertise of Elon Musk, because Asgardia does not see his task as a one-way ticket, but we see the first stage of creating a near-Earth orbit, which is called Asgardia Earth Arc, and the second stage of creating a moon orbit, we see it being created on the orbit, not on moon. We call it Asgardia Moon Arc, and then we intend to create an arc in space, which is going to be called Asgardia Star Arc, and we intend for its exploitation time to be able to last over 50 years. So we'd like to move forward over these 3 stages, and in order to continue the humanity's existence without the population going down, so we needed to also be able to have a required minimum of people which must be present in order for humanity to be able to ensure its existence and reproduction over this length space journey. Mr. Juxing Shi from Thailand is asking that he can't find any documents regarding Asgardia in Chinese, and it's very hard to read in using Google Translate, and when it was multilingual materials are going to be a problem. Yes, this is a problem for Asgardia, and this problem is a purely financial one, because the budgets of Asgardia are not enough in order to develop the young state so quickly. So unfortunately, for now, our website is just English, and I think that we're shortly going to see both a Spanish and a Russian version. Now, why these 2 languages have been chosen? Well, the thing is that Asgardians have voted, and they've chosen 12 languages, which they would like to be as national languages and state languages. And as far as I remember, 60% of Asgardians have chosen English as their national language. And the second after that was the Spanish language. And both the Russian and the Spanish language are also the 2 languages that are used on the International Space Station. So these 2 languages are the languages of space. So these 3 languages are the ones that we have chosen: the English, Spanish, and the Russian. But it is clear and definite that the Chinese language, which is one of the 12 languages of Asgardia, one of the 12 government languages of Asgardia, we are going to make sure that the site is translated into it, but I can't tell you an exact date now, but we'll try to get this done within a year for sure. Now, Konstantin Grigoriev asks, why in many news and media of various countries, why no one ever mentions Asgardia in the news? Now, this is not true, Konstantin, because I give an enormous amount of interviews to various mass media, and I see the digests of publications across the world, and trust me, even in the most exotic of countries, when sometimes we are not expecting a publication from there, we see hundreds of publications. Maybe you have not come across any, but we have a lot of media coverage, and the only country where people laugh at us is Russia. All the other countries in the world cover us with great press coverage, which is certainly surprising, and it allows us to be taken more well, and we're happy that the idea of Asgardia is taken seriously by the international journalist community, and that they're interested and greet us with warmth and welcome. Now, regarding the financial and economic development of Asgardia, there are a huge amount of questions, and I don't want to look like we're using our today's stream and our today's meeting, but I'll say it anyway. We're going to do everything we can with the economy as soon as we have enough residents. And it would be strange to think that a state can exist without taxes. And I'm going to tell you a scary sum, and I didn't want to, but I decided to, that we need to, from the budget of 2019, we only got 12.58% from as much as we needed to. So the budget of Asgardia for 2019 was carried out less than for 13% of its full capacity. And over the first 3 months of this year, we've already seen a 13% collection, but we are not yet, of course, looking at any financial and economic development. We can't even start the subject of this development until we see the harmonization of the amount of Asgardians. Because in order for us to be able to uphold the budget of this year, we need approximately 150,000 residents. And so Asgardians, the residents of Earth, become Asgardians, and people are asking me, how do you see an ideal, a perfect Asgardian? Well, a perfect Asgardian is an Earther, is a free person who wants to see a beautiful future for himself and for humanity as a single community. And of course, they have asked me so much about coronavirus. Now, I'm coughing not because of the coronavirus. I'm coughing because my throat is becoming dry. I'm talking to you for an hour now, and I am afraid of being politically incorrect in terms of coronavirus coverage, because this is a topic that only the lazy person has not yet covered. But I am remembering my childhood, and my mom told me back then, quickly, wash your hands and go to eat. And all of a sudden, people are remembering again that, oh, they need to wash their hands. And I think the only medication that is currently being subscribed is like paracetamol, which the same. These jokes are coming back from my childhood. When a doctor talks to a person infected with the flu, they tell me, you have to definitely drink the pills, then you'll get well in a week. And the patient asks me then, well, what happens if you don't take the pills? The doctor answers, well, then you're going to get better in 7 days. Well, it's the same thing that's happening with the coronavirus now. All the measures that are currently being placed, they are probably necessary, but I would like to address the Asgardians with a very simple thought that the virus is, of course, scary, but I think that panic is far more scarier, that poisons our souls. So don't panic and stay healthy. And I think that it is time for us to be finishing up with our stream. We have a couple of minutes left. Now, there are a number of personal questions regarding my biography and so on and so forth, and there are many of them. And I'm not going to answer them today, because today we've seen more questions answered regarding Asgardia as a state. Now, if my assistants are going to tell me that we had success with this stream today and we're going to continue and do this again and again, and people are writing to me like, what are you afraid of? Well, I can tell you what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of spiders. I'm afraid even of the tiniest of spiders. Except for that, I think I'm good. I'm not afraid of anything else. And I'd like to finish our today's meeting by saying our government motto, one humanity, one community. I hug all of you and thank you to each one of you for your attention. All the best. Goodbye.